meeting started. Penny, if we need to go live on YouTube, we can do that now.
Tyler, you got that?
Because boy, I keep you guys busy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead and call this meeting to order at 3:03. Are there any announcements? See none.
I do have a request.
Okay.
Because of some scheduling and the things that we have going on here, Reggie has to be two places at once. And we're asking if we could put his update at the very end after the director's update.
Sure. I'll move that down.
And then in the director's update, we're going to have Paul Gunzelman, who's the city engineer, give a presentation on the Delano Trail.
Okay.
It's something that Alejo had asked for, and there's no voting or anything like that. It's just informational from the work they're doing on the trail.
Awesome. Okay. Are there any public comments, Penny? Anything come in?
I received nothing.
Okay. Did everyone have a chance to read and review the minutes from December 9th and December 14th? Any changes that need to be made? I would go ahead and make them.
I'm sorry, Eddie, I was muted. There is a correction I think you want to make on the minutes.
Okay.
In the first section, we were talking about the emails that had been received, and Mr. Palmer had raised questions about it, said he was irritated, and then it says Fondstock responded, to be fair, he feels he took it upon himself because he cares, blah, blah, blah. You were talking about me, but in the words that are used there, it sounds like you're talking about yourself. I don't think you want that to be the case, do you?
Right. Is that, sorry, Dale, is that dated on the 9th or the 14th?
This is the regular meeting.
Okay.
On the 14th.
Okay.
And to just say Fondstock responded, to be fair, he feels the person who issued the call is me. So you could say Goder for that matter. Just to clarify, the way it reads, it sounds like you're talking about yourself.
I can make that change easy enough.
Good point.
Thanks for pointing that out, Dale.
And I have to compliment Penny, though, on her comprehensive note-taking. These are really amazing minutes. You rarely see that at public meetings. So, but that's one of the few errors I've ever found. So thank you, Penny.
Penny's an all-star.
Well, thank you. I'll get that correction made before I publish those minutes.
Anything from the December 9th meeting that needs to be changed? If there's none, I would make a motion to approve and file the minutes from December 9th.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. And anything else?
Eddie, regarding minutes, maybe this is the time to bring it up. I had a question from a constituent about the Golf Advisory Committee minutes. On the website, the last 3 or 4 meetings, the minutes haven't been posted. I wonder if those are in the works or are they someplace else? I couldn't find them. Is there?
Eddie, on that, I think they made some updates to the webpage just late last week, and I think most of those are out there now.
Okay.
So we'll check on that and find out if there's any missing. We'll get those added.
Thank you.
Thanks, Penny. Okay, anything on December 14th that needs to be changed from the minutes? If not, I would also make a motion to approve and file with the changes that Mr. Goder suggested.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, moving on to item number 2, new items for consideration. We've got item A, policy for sale and purchase of park property. I think, Troy, are you giving this presentation, or is legal?
I don't have a presentation. I wasn't sure exactly what the topic is or needed, but we did talk a little bit about this prior to this meeting, and I'm not exactly sure what direction you guys want to go, or if it was just an open discussion. We have a basic philosophy that we abide by, and that is we try to avoid selling any kind of property, parkland property, unless it's really, really needed. If that's the case, we also make sure that we get market value or more. And there's only been a few situations where we've done that, and we want to make sure that's a win-win situation. So this is basically the philosophy that we follow, and that's just for the Board of Park Commissioner property as well as the City of Wichita parkland. So I'm not sure what else we wanted to go or discuss.
Mr. Chairman,
Dale?
I had requested that to be put on the agenda. It flows a little bit from our discussion at the previous meeting. I made reference to the fact that there were some differing circumstances regarding the potential sale of golf courses, noting that Clap had been offered to Quick Trip without an RFP. When McDonald was put up for sale, it's more than just a policy, Mr. Houtman, as described by the Mayor Longwell and the manager at that time from the bench. The mayor called it a legal requirement that whenever an offer is received, that they are required to post an RFP. And he made a big point of saying the city never tried to sell McDonald Park. Those were his words, but they were compelled to do an RFP because they had received an offer. And the manager concurred and said, that's true. Anytime we have an offer, we have to do an RFP. But I was a little confused by the Quick Trip Clap situation. And there currently is an offer on the table for Sim Park that's maybe addressed later, but if it's a firm policy by the council, does it apply to the park board? The park board owns the property. So is the park board governed by city council policies regarding land that the park board owns? I mean, this is going to come up likely again, so I think it's worth clarifying.
So there's two situations that we're talking about in regards to parkland that's owned by the city and Board of Park Commissioners property. So I think in both cases, what we're looking for is when there is an active interest or something that is really going to need some kind of clarification to make sure that we are make sure everybody has the opportunity to bid on it, that there typically always has been, as far as I know, a RFP put out for a piece of property.
That
also includes other city property as well.
You recall that discussion from the bench, last year, the year when the McDonald situation was discussed as part of the budget hearings. But do you recall that conversation and the way it was described by the manager and by the mayor?
I don't. I'd have to go back and look at it.
Well, perhaps for the next meeting, we could get an absolute clarification. It's a odd situation because the park board owns 2 of the golf courses and has the absolute authority to sell it. And attendant to that would be all the requirements. If there are legal requirements, is the park board bound by those same, as the mayor Longwell called it, legal requirements going forward? We're about to see a potential transfer of the golf courses to a nonprofit, which raises again the question of who has control of the 2 courses that are in the park board's name. I'd like to see that all clarified before we get to the point where a decision is required.
Elizabeth, if you could help us with that, that'd be helpful. But I think there's two different things that we need to talk about as well. Is there's a difference between buying a piece of property and having a third party operate it. So two different situations. And right now what we're looking at, as far as my understanding, is the city Parks and Recreation Department has the authority to operate the Board of Park Commissioners property. Now, if it's going to be sold, then I think that's something that has to go to the Board of Park Commissioners. And that was an example of that was McDonald, when there was an offer on the table for it, and the Board of Park Commissioners decided not to take the offer.
Troy, if I may, Dale was asking about putting out the RFP. The RFP was voted on by the park board, and the park board said, well, since there's an offer, let's see what else is out there. And it was the park board that voted to have an RFP drafted. Now, I'm sorry, I don't know what the mayor said at the budget hearings. And the manager, I was not there, I don't know. But that's how the RFP got put out for McDonald. It was voted on and approved by the board, by the park board, because that's a park board golf course.
Well, perhaps for the clarity of the public, they heard something different during that budget hearing. So perhaps you could research that, go back and listen to that. The way the manager, they made it very clear that it was the city doing it. That's part of that confusion of when the park board has control over some properties and the city has otherwise. In the case of this nonprofit, though, if it's going to be leased, does the park board have authority or a requirement to approve a lease of the properties that they own?
If it's park board property, Mr. Fonestock will sign the lease on behalf of the park board if you vote to accept it. It will not be the mayor. It will be Mr. Fonestock.
That's good to know. That's good to know. We weren't sure whether the park board would be involved, whether that was an administrative function that the manager could execute on his own without a park board intervention. Okay, could we also clarify on the Quick Trip instance, can you clarify why that wasn't an RFP?
I'm not familiar that an offer was ever made on that. I'm sorry.
And again, no, there was definitely an offer from Quick Trip to buy a corner of again, this doesn't need to be talked about now. If you could perhaps research for that for the next meeting, just to clarify what those policies are. If it is in fact an ironclad policy.
No.
I'd like to see it in writing and see what it is so we can follow it and be consistent. That's my primary concern.
Well, Dale, this is Hoyt. I don't think we requested one. That's probably the situation. I have a question about property. When Botanica is moving over and taking part of Cowtown property for parking lot, that still belongs within the city, so there shouldn't be a problem there, right?
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that agreement, but no, there should not be. I don't know any restrictions on Cowtown property. Troy alluded to the fact, and I think it very much needs to be understood as far as Sim Park goes, Sim Golf Course. The land Sim Park was donated many, many years ago by a family with restrictions on that donation.
Right.
And we were not even able to build Botanica without finding all of the heirs and getting their approval to allow for Botanica to be built. And I believe when we last expanded Botanica, we also got their approval, or I don't know if we got a blanket agreement for future expansions. I'm sorry, I was nowhere involved with that situation. The attorney that handled that is long retired from the park board and is deceased, but we do have the files on that. But there are some restrictions on that deed that I recall would prohibit us from, well, it wouldn't prohibit us, but if we sold it to a private entity, we may well have to pay back the family for the value of that property, or they would have a right to come into court and stop that. So
Well, on
there
the,
are big restrictions on Sim Park.
okay, on the north end of Sim Park where the children's home was, there is a development going in right now, and they're working with parks, I assume, in the city to create a walkway, a continuous walkway along that park edge along the river. So there's probably some transfer of property going on right there. Have you been involved in that?
No, I have not.
So Hoyt, I've been involved with that, and it was actually not Board of Park Commissioners property, it was actually city property that was swapped. So we can actually get more acreage, and actually we gained $15,000 to put towards the trailhead.
Okay, well, that's good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Halvin, in that instance, there was some discussion of an RFP. I think in the minutes it said that you thought there would be an RFP for the property that for which the $15,000 was obtained. The city got something else on that trailhead part, but did it go through like a financial analysis to make sure that it was market value? And
Yes, we did. We measured the acreage. Since it was pretty much the same size of acreage, the swap was pretty much even. That's why I asked for $15,000 more.
okay. And again, that wasn't parkland. That was just city-owned property that wouldn't have been. It came to the park board as a courtesy, I guess. Is that why?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, again, just to restate for next meeting, if we could have that. I've looked at the deed, Ms. Arlinsky, and the only restriction I saw is that the property has to be maintained for recreational uses. So if we're sold as a golf course, apparently that would meet the requirements. I'm not an attorney, and I would leave that to brighter minds, but it seems like it's I know there was a objection when a cell tower was going to be put up there, and that got rejected. That wouldn't have been a recreational use. Nonetheless, so that could be on the agenda for next week to have that policy. If there is in fact a policy, if you would review the manager and mayor's comments at that point so that we could all be on the same page, which has been a recurring problem for some of this in recent times. I think it'd be useful as you face a major decision coming forward about the future of the golf property and perhaps other park property.
Okay. Any other questions or requests for Troy or Elizabeth? Okay, moving on to continuation of prior business.
Well, actually, Eddie, if you would indulge, is there an update, since we're talking about transfer of property, is there an update on the golf course proposal that's been floating around?
Are we going to get to that? And
you can do that.
Update.
Okay. That's fine with me.
Okay. Let's go to 2021 goals, and we'll visit that at the golf update, which I believe Mr. Houtman is going to give since Mr. Hendricks is out today. So on December 9th, last month, we had a retreat and came up with, I thought it was a very positive, forward-thinking conversation and discussion. And we came up with, several things that we want to work on, initiatives that we want to work on in 2021 and beyond. So we can go through that right now. I think Penny sent something out a little less than a week later after we discussed that, which is much appreciated, to have something on paper that we can, look back at and kind of track our successes and our failures throughout the year and work to build on that. So I've got it right here. I don't know if Troy, if you want to hop in at any point. I know we're thinking about putting a couple subcommittees together We've got golf, of course, with the subcommittee. I think it would be helpful to set up a finance and budget committee as well that maybe meets once a quarter or so and just kind of takes a look at, the high level, look at our finances. Also programming. I think that's super important. Work directly with Reggie and the rest of the staff and talk about what's going right, what's going wrong, how can we improve, what are we hearing from the community. Another one that we talked about was the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan, getting something on that going again. It seems as though it's lost a little bit of steam with COVID-19 and 2020, but maybe we can get something together and get those wheels turning again on our end. And then also I wrote down park maintenance, just kind of an overall view of what we're seeing, our parks cleanliness, forestry, everything like that. So those are the kind of 4 bullet points that I wrote down. And if anybody else has suggestions on some ideas that they may have, please feel free to interject. But that's kind of what I have right now. Troy, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, and we actually saw 8 bullet points, and I think you covered most of them. Re-energizing the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan. And I think as the park board, there's a lot of different directions you guys could go with this, and I think I would need direction from you guys so I could support you guys on this and see what it is we want. And we had a regular meeting or somebody coming in and provide updates, but since the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan's kind of dropped off the scope of things, it really hasn't been in the forefront of anybody. But if you guys want more information on that, let me know. Number 2 was provide monthly updates at the regular board meetings, budget, accounting, as well as park and maintenance, forestry. Today, we're going to be actually introducing those 2 items. Emma's going to be doing an overview of last year, our budget and how we came out and some of the things of our challenges. And we're going to be doing a forestry presentation today. But in the future, I think there's going to be some things that David's going to bring to the table in regards to some of our challenges, some of the things that we really want to improve on, what our vision and focus is for park maintenance, which includes forestry. Number 3 was continue advocating and supporting legacy project at CLAP. There's 3 items, A, B, and C. Finalize the master plan, support fundraising and sponsorship opportunities, and ensure community feels represented. We are going to be bringing the master plan to you guys, I think either next month or the month after. It just depends on what our consultants are working on. Fundraising is going to be a big issue in regards to getting public fundraising, but also getting budget support from the CIP through council and the city manager. Ensuring that the community feels represented. We've been working on this public engagement with this project for a long time, and will continue as well. Just because we have a master plan, that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be the final plan, but when we get into construction and bidding, that will be another area where we get some more feedback from the community. The 4th item that you guys had was improve communication between the department, the city council, city manager, and the board of park commissioners. There's A and a B part to this. Develop a regular communications plan to provide general updates on the department activities. We record this, and the council reviews this on a regular basis, this meeting, but we'll provide a little bit more updates and highlight some things that are more important. I'll provide that communication to the city manager. And then with the city manager, myself and I are going to have written communication to bring back to the board. If there's any general questions, or if there's something that's voted upon that you wanted council to act on, I will pass that on in writing, and then also get it back in writing as well. The 5th point was take ownership of the park board name on 1 or 2 projects. And again, if you guys want to identify 1 or 2 projects, and we will support you guys on that endeavor. Number 6 was address golf. promote an affordable, sustainable public golf system. And that seems to be a pretty important topic. And I think every month we talk about that, as well as at every golf advisory committee meeting and other times as well. Number 7 was hold intentional meetings, make recommendations, focus on what we can do, and address challenges. And I think that was in a broader sense of challenges within the department, but also challenges within the community of how we can be supportive of those. I think that was something that Alejo had talked about. And then the last one was number 8, be aware of comparable regional cities, like size cities, sister cities, what are they doing? Can we emulate them to be successful? Build upon their projects, their financial models, their successes, which is something that we typically do on all kinds of projects, operational wise. It's something that we do through CAPRA as well. When we look at policies, procedures, we look at projects, we look at programming initiatives, we get those ideas, but we also share our ideas as well. We have a lot of folks that are always asking us, what are we doing? So it goes both ways, and there's a strong connection throughout the country of Parks and Recreation directors that we share a lot of information with. So those were the items, and I think some of those that we're starting to work on and address, and we could put some check marks on those and make sure that we are continuing to do that. But there's some things I'm going to need some direction from you guys.
Troy, this is Hoyt. I would be interested in participating on a subcommittee for CLAP and or the riverfront.
Duly noted your interest. I don't think I have the authority or can direct you guys on what or who should go on what subcommittee. I think that comes as you guys as a group. So if you guys provide me the subcommittees, I'll make sure to work with them and and keep you guys involved.
Troy, I think Ty and I had also volunteered as well to serve on the Riverfront Legacy subcommittee piece. But what you said that you would need direction from us on certain things. What are the things that you would need direction from us on?
So in regards to subcommittees, you guys need to develop your own subcommittees. You need to develop or address who's going to be on those subcommittees. I don't think I have the authority to tell you guys who that should be. So I think you guys have to develop your own subcommittees and put your own people on there. From that, I would need direction as what you need or what you want in those subcommittees. A couple other things where I would need some support on is how do you guys want, on item number 3, how do you guys want to advocate for the CLAP project? Number 5, taking ownership and put the park board name on 1 or 2 projects. I would need direction from you guys on that as well.
I've got a question on Riverfront, just because it has been on the agenda repeatedly, but in my tenure on the park board, it's never really been discussed. I think all that took place in a prior year. What specifically is the park board responsibility on the legacy plan? Are we the driver? Are we, what's our role?
So a little bit of history on this, Dale, was as the plan was moving forward, a lot of this is actually on city parkland. And I think there was an effort and an idea that the park board should be involved with some of the development or the direction or giving some feedback. But like I mentioned earlier, that's kind of fallen off because the project hasn't really been moving forward.
Yeah, and just a little bit of a follow-up to that. I've reached out to a couple of members of the steering committee just to indicate our desire to be more involved in this process going forward. It's my understanding there's a meeting of the steering committee. I think it's this month. I'm not sure when. So following that, I should get a little bit of an update on kind of what the process going forward and what the timeline might be. And then next month, we should be able to talk about how we kind of insert ourselves into that process.
Ty, have you heard anything back from the Populous architects? I know they were working on kind of a new concept, or not a new concept, but a modified concept, if you will, to fit the new needs of, the COVID-19, pandemic and everything like that. So do you know if they have gotten back to the downtown development guys, or are we waiting on them?
I don't know, honestly. Troy Hauptman, you might have more current information than I do on that. Are there any updates from your end?
I have not heard of any updates, and that's why I mentioned it. It's really kind of fallen off. I know WDDC, Wichita Downtown Development Corporation, or Downtown Wichita, was spearheading most of that and kind of working with the group and trying to get that information out. I have not heard from them in a long time on this topic, so I don't have anything else.
I'd spoken to Evan Roselle just before Christmas, and they were re-engaging with the Populous group. And so I think at this month's meeting, they're supposed to have a better idea, and I think that we'll be able to provide answers to those questions at the February Park Board meeting. And I think there'll be a lot more clarity on, like I mentioned, the timeline, but also Populous and their engagement, specifically as it pertains to a new design or revamping of that design.
Where does the Century 2 discussion fit into the legacy plan? Is that a variable that we have to sign off on as part of the re-energize?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I think from our end, we're the park board, and at least I'm looking at this as this is a park. If we're looking at parks and,
Yeah, you're looking at park
spaces.
out there and
So
a
we're only
bunch of
looking at-
shoreline.
We're only looking at the components that involve parkland?
So Dale, going back to your original question about where do we fall in here, the master planning process was underway early last year and late the year before that. They depicted that there's going to be a significant amount of park space going the east bank of the riverfront there, and that's how we got involved. I see it. We're kind of beneficiaries to this, in my opinion, because there's significant amounts of parkland in those initial drawings. Now, I haven't seen or heard anything back from the Populous folks. I'm sure that the downtown development folks are staying in constant contact with them and providing them the necessary information so that they can come up with the best renderings. But I haven't heard anything back since this kind of dropped off maybe in March, kind of right as the pandemic picked up, and of course our city leaders and everyone else, COVID-19 was at the forefront of most conversations, kind of dominated everybody's world for the past 8 or 9 months, 10 months, whatever it is. But that's kind of what I see. When somebody gives us a rendering and says this is a park space, you're going to have to involve the park board. I think that's where we fall in right now. So
Okay.
we want to stay in constant communication with Populous and the Downtown Development Corps and the rest of the steering committee to share with them, ideas. This is what we're hearing. This is what we think, would do really well. Et cetera, et cetera. Ty, you can expand on that if you'd like.
Yeah, I think it's it's the whole thing. The master plan for the site, programming for the green space, maintenance plans. It's kind of getting it built and what's the plan beyond that once it is built.
So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Dale. Well, do we want to have a discussion on, who should head some of these subcommittees right now, or do we want to do that behind closed doors?
I don't think we should do anything behind closed doors. Unless there's a reason for, this isn't personnel, this is just public policy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say as perhaps if you identified the subcommittees, and the group signs off on them as titled subcommittees, then people can submit their names to participate. I would think would fall to you to appoint the chairs of those respective subcommittees. Does that not
Okay.
make sense?
I agree.
All right, so is everybody in agreement that finance/budget, there should be a subcommittee for that?
Absolutely.
That was my number one bullet point. Programming. The Riverfront Legacy Master Plan Committee,
Definitely.
and then park maintenance and forestry. Of course, we already have golf, so that's taken care of. Does anybody else have anything that we need to take a look at or
Clap Park.
clap?
If I can make a friendly suggestion,
Sure.
maybe you place CLAP inside of a CIP subcommittee that would also include items such as CLAP or other major projects like Test Drive Lewis or some of the other projects. So
Yeah. I
So-
agree.
So would that overlap with the finance committee?
no, I think the finances in regards to budgeting and our financial operations, CIP will definitely be focused on capital improvement projects.
Right.
And we just put a great capital improvement project page out on our website. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to see it.
I reviewed it carefully. I would love to be a part of that. And CLAP should be part of that. I agree.
Okay. Anything else? I feel like I'm missing something.
So what do you have now for subcommittee titles?
I've got finance/budget, programming, Riverfront Legacy, park maintenance, and community improvement plan, CIP.
Did you also have golf, Eddie?
Yeah, I had golf. I'll leave that off for now since we've already got a subcommittee for that.
Eddie, do we need to put terms or anything like that on these subcommittees? And what I mean by that is like the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan, right? Is that a subcommittee that we want to fold once that project is done? And I don't know, similarly to something like CLAP Park, like do we need to specify those things today or just in the future?
I guess I would add to that with my question. We're kind of opening up Pandora's box. Are we going to create rules of operation for these committees and frequency of meetings, or is it going to be done more ad hoc as needed? There are a couple of different ways to approach it, and I don't think anybody wants like sort of the Golf Advisory Committee approach with minutes taken and all of that. I mean, to me, it's more of an informal get together among commissioners to stay abreast of what's happening so we can make better decisions going forward.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But it would be useful if those subcommittees reported on a regular basis back to the body. You just get together and talk about yourself and nobody else knows about it. It doesn't much accomplish things. It'd be nice to, it should be a formal process of reporting if you do meet and you reach some conclusions. Otherwise, things will go in the dark and we won't know.
Well, I think we can add that to our monthly meeting as, if let's say the Finance and Budget Committee meets quarterly, they give a quarterly update to the rest of the park board, similar to all the other committees. I like, Ty's idea of almost being an ad hoc deal, as needed basis, if you will. Certainly we've identified these things as important for this year and years moving forward. So it's not like you're just going to go and sit there and just kind of twiddle your thumbs, if you will. There's significant changes out there that can be brought to the forefront, positive impacts that can be made. So, I like that. I don't think it needs to be anything formal. I think that turns some people off in some capacity. So I think something informal where, a few commissioners sit down and, talk about what's going on, what they're seeing, what they're hearing from their constituents, around the community, et cetera, and go from there.
Eddie,
So,
as
one
as
question on
staff,
that.
we would be happy to support them in that endeavor. So if they wanted a quarterly meeting, we could host that in one of our park facilities if we wanted. And so the coordinating staff members such as golf, or if it was CIP, we could have somebody from the engineering department help out with that. Or if it's in regards to facility and maintenance and forestry, David would attend that meeting and be there to answer questions or share information. But I think that way those folks could come back, as you mentioned, our board members, and report back to the board at large.
Okay. Thank you. Ty, Jim.
Just a question, just so we respect the Open Meetings Act. So is it any gathering of 4 or more commissioners triggers Open Meetings Act? Is that correct? So we just have 3 of us meeting for coffee to talk about the CIP. Hypothetically, that's fine, correct?
I believe that's correct. I'll let Elizabeth confirm that
Yes,
here.
I believe that's correct. I think some of these subcommittees, you're going to have enough people to make it subject to the coma. I think you need to be mindful of that. But you also can't, of course, have adversarial communication either. But if you have a majority of a quorum, you're subject to coma.
Okay.
I think a subcommittee, if you appoint it, is a formal body and it would have its own majority of a quorum within, and that's the way it works on the legislative level, I know. And I wonder if perhaps I know it sounds like a good idea, and I've advocated on the budget side for that, but like for the Riverfront project, is there decision-making for the
No.
park board on an ongoing basis that requires the subcommittee to do work and then report back? That seems a bit of an overkill on that one. I mean, you two have been intimately involved. I respect whatever information you bring to the board when it's necessary. It doesn't seem like that really rises to a subcommittee level. If you take individual projects and assign subcommittees to every one of them, we're going to have a lot of, these other ones are broad brushed. I mean, budget's a big picture, program's a big picture, and CIP and golf are, seem to have some merit, but I mean, you can do what you think's most appropriate, but I do think you're bound by the core or coma requirements.
Right.
If you formally identify a subcommittee, it should meet all the open meetings requirements.
I think the Riverfront legacy, to me, it rises to the top, or to the form of a subcommittee. I think it's transformational for Wichita over the next 30 to 50 years and beyond. So I certainly want, boots on the ground, representing the park board, whether it's Alejo and or Ty, whoever it may be. I want, representation there, and making sure that our voice is heard. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys.
No, I think that's good.
But I'm unclear of what is our voice? What is our are there specific components that rise to the level that requires our formal attention as a park board? Are we delegating that authority to these folks on behalf of the park board? It's a really, really big deal. And I am not well versed on it. What I'd read in the papers about all I know and what Ty has told us. I know we want to be involved, but perhaps it should just stay as a regular report item to the park board as a whole. And these folks, these guys are involved anyway. They're going to be knowledgeable about it regardless. So. Anyway, that's whatever you decide is fine.
I guess, and I guess I don't want to get too much into the weeds about, the the Riverfront Legacy Subcommittee, but I think at some point we decided what our role should be in this process. Like, if we said that we want to advocate for the Riverfront Legacy Master Plan, then what does that look like, right? But if we just want to be informed partners, right, and just give our seal of approval on things, then I think we need to be able to spell those things out. And maybe that's something that we figure out as a subcommittee and bring as a recommendation to the next park meeting. Because at the same time, I don't want, Ty and I and Dale or whoever else gets together to just sit around and, twiddle our thumbs. Like, if we're meeting together, I would hope that we're working on, bringing some tangible solutions to some of the challenges we're facing.
Well, again, I trust you that you will bring to the park board, if there's a decision to be made, that you'll bring that to the attention, since you folks are intimately involved. That's kind of the same I feel about golf. If I have specific knowledge, I'd like to bring it, and it's true of others in other areas.
Okay. Well, let's stick with those for now. And if everybody could please send me their where they want to sit or where they prefer to delegate their time so graciously. Please include Troy Houtman on that email so that we can kind of sit down and talk about this and make the best decisions that we can. So. Okay.
Eddie, if I can provide a friendly suggestion.
Yes.
So you have 6 topics, and there's 7 of you guys. You as the chairperson, you have a lot of responsibility as it is already. Just throwing this out there, maybe each one carries the responsibility for each one of these topics. And then we can put that in our agenda. And as you guys see fit, you let me know, and we can put it on the agenda and have these report back.
I think that's a great idea. Does anybody have any objections to that?
That's a start.
Okay. Okay. Anything else on the goals for 2021?
But one point, this will not preclude us talking about any of those issues as a park board at any given meeting, though. We're just expecting that perhaps more in-depth background work will be done by the folks who are on the committee, and we're all better informed as a result. That's the intent?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the intent is each one of the folks would have a specialty or an area that they would spend some time on and be able to report that back to the board to be more efficient, but also to dive down deeper. So an example would be the finance and budgeting. Away from the meeting, we would have obviously a subcommittee meeting that we can have staff there that can really share the background, all the intimate down the weeds items, and we can share it with that committee, or that subcommittee, I should say. And if there's any questions or concerns, which I'm sure there will be, or they want to give feedback to the board at whole, we can do that, whether we do that on a quarterly basis or a monthly basis, or when you tell me you want that.
Okay.
Eddie?
Yes.
Just one thing, I'm sitting here scanning the ordinance establishing the park board. Sorry, I wasn't prepared for this, probably as I should have been, but I don't, in response to Dale's question, I don't think you can delegate any decision-making authority to any of these subcommittees, which I think you've already agreed you're not going to do. The ordinance that creates the park board doesn't allow for that. The Golf Advisory Committee was established by the city council by vote. So I don't see any problem in having these subcommittees, but I think they're going to have to bring their knowledge back to the board, and then the board's going to have to vote and be the final. The authority remains with you as a board. But Dale was wondering if it was possible to delegate, and I don't think that it is. So just to mention that.
But you're only delegating the information gathering component. Like a legislative subcommittee just brings information and the committee makes the decision at the end. That's the same here. I'm just looking forward to getting more, as you said, Mr. Halvin, a deeper dive into some of them that comes from somebody who does the work.
Okay. Thanks for clearing that up, Elizabeth. Is everybody clear on that? Okay. All right. Anything else on 2021 goals?
Yes. So, what was it?
On the final item, that I like that language. I've tried to do that in numerous occasions with golf without much success. I'd like to see a more, I guess, substantive response on that, where we look at other communities specifically on the golf sense and find out which are our sister cities, which are comparable programs, and whether we are ahead or behind the curve on them going forward. That'd be something that'll default to the perhaps the GAC anyway.
Eddie, there was one item, number 5. We'll take ownership of, with the park board name on 1 or 2 projects. Maybe if you guys come back next month with 1 or 2 items of what you guys really want to get behind on. There's a number of things, whether it's social equity, you want to talk about diversity or those kind of items, or if there's actually projects that you guys want to put your name on in regards to capital projects or programming items, or maybe areas that you want to see growth in. So if you guys want to put 1 or 2 items that you really want to put your name behind, and we can work with you guys on that.
Okay. Leo, I think you brought that up in the retreat, not to put you on the spot here, but did you have anything in mind for programming or a project?
I mean, I think a couple. One thing that the 2 things that come to mind, and one of them I don't even know that it's a programming thing. I don't know how to describe it, but I guess I'm going to describe it as the marketing of our parks. I mean, we have some really high quality parks, and Troy and the team already do an awesome job on social media, but I would love for us to be, for our parks social media pages to be almost like a destination Instagram, Facebook place type of engagement, right? And I don't know what that looks like or how to describe that, but I want people to understand that the parks in the city of Wichita are awesome spaces, right? That are more than just the rec center, right? I mean, we have amazing trails and spaces, and I mean, I could go on and on about it, but something like that. And then another thing would just be, for future projects, like I think of Clap Park. I mean, I know that the master planning of it, for example, is continued on, but I mean, I would have loved to see in the future our park board really be, and I don't know that we haven't or have been, but I want us to be integral parts when we have projects like that in place, right? Or when an opportunity presents itself for us to bring something like that into fruition. I want our team to be, an asset in that process. So I don't know if that's capital improvement projects. And Troy, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know that we've necessarily led, the park board has led in bringing up items like that, but I would love for the park board to be the ones that are leading some of these initiatives and helping carry some of these things and bring them to life.
Okay, I like
so
that.
there's areas where we can find where we have needs, and we do needs assessments throughout the whole park department and all of our parks, and that could be part of a presentation that we provide with the parks and forestry. And so identifying what some of those needs are might be something where you guys could get behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it might as well start with the challenges, the opportunities that exist already, right? I mean, that's low hanging fruit that we should be able to tackle.
Leo, I'd raised a similar point in previous meetings about the dog parks and whether there's a way to engage the public more I suggested if there might be a separate Facebook page. Got a little pushback on that. We didn't have any resources to do that. So if we're going to do it, that's an example of it. I agree with you. It's a resource that's not as well promoted as it could be, but I'd sense there wasn't much enthusiasm to do so.
I guess, and when I think of, you know, social media and stuff like that, I don't think we should. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think that we should start another social media page for the dog parks, but I think that we can use the assets that we already have, you know, through the city of Wichita, the Parks and Rec social media pages, and you know, I think we could amplify those a lot more. And I don't know if that's something. I don't know that the park board needs to become content creators, for example, for the city, but you know, we have experts here, and like Tori, for example, who are, I mean, who this is some of the work that they do, and we can tap into those, tap into that knowledge, and you know, see if we can amplify the things that are already happening, and help make the lives easier of our city staff.
Lehill, this is Hoyt. I think you're right. Actually, Parks not only has a marketing individual, they have and have had for a while, but they actually can work with the marketing department on the 13th floor and work with Visit Wichita. And that's one of the best ways to tie back and get to the city manager and some of the funds that he's got for promoting various things, and controlling Channel 7 and other kind of promotions out there. We do that sort of thing with Cowtown and Botanica.
Yeah, I mean, I think that'd be awesome. I mean, I didn't know we had a marketing person, but you know, I don't know if that's Troy. I don't know the way we go about this, but I feel like we can do more as a park board to be an asset to you, and you know, just communicating the things that we have, the assets that we already have. I think is an easy start, in my opinion.
So just let you know that Botanica has their own marketing person, and they market through their own budget. I do not have a dedicated official marketing person on board. We have several folks that happen to be really good at social media and are working on that. What we're supposed to do is go through a centralized marketing person through the city manager's office, which is a whole nother discussion altogether, which is beyond just operations of parks. So it's been a little bit more complicated than just as easy as saying, you know what, we should promote more social media. I think we have some folks on board that do a pretty good job of getting the social media out there. There's two different things. Do we want public engagement on different things, or do we want to promote our programs? And that's where we're really kind of focusing on, is really trying to promote all of our programs and get more people to come to our classes, visit our parks, go to our special events. That's really what we really want to focus on, because we have the community engagement portion of it through a couple different other avenues, particularly in regards to capital improvement projects as well. So.
Okay.
One thing that seems to be missing from my perspective is that the public engagement side. I know we do it on a specific case-by-case basis, but I don't sense there's much of a public overture that the park board makes to get regular input to this body from the public. I know we are the designated appointees of our elected officials, but we don't have, there's rarely a public comment. Our agendas are really not well publicized. There should be, I agree that what you said earlier, we have a wonderful resource, largely unknown to most of the community. I've learned a lot about parks in this short time. And that seems to be maybe in this broad brush thing of subcommittees and our policies and goals, that maybe we'll do a better job of that, particularly where it relates to diversity and reaching out to all parts of the community. I don't sense that that's there right now.
I think Stacy Ham used to do that.
Troy, do you have access to the social media analytics, like the clicks and the hits and all that good stuff? Or do you have to go through the marketing person from the city manager's office?
Both of those situations. Some of the social media that we put out, obviously we run our own analytics, and but on a broader sense, what we're getting from the city manager's office is very helpful as well. A couple things in regards to what Stacy Ham used to do. Her specific job was to buy advertisements. She actually worked with Cop Media and some of the other folks in buying advertisement. And she worked on some special events. She was not the social media person. She didn't create a marketing plan for us. But in our marketing plan that we put together, we have specifically added things in there in regards to reaching out to more diverse and being a little bit more inclusive. So we've been working with some of the other folks in regards to the African American community as well as the Hispanic community to get them more involved. It's a difficult process when we're very, very short-handed. We're just barely able to maintain what we have right now, but it's one of our top priorities. It's in our goals. It's everything that we do that really stands for Parks and Recreation is in regards to diversity, inclusion, social justice. Those are all big topics that we work on.
Okay. Yeah, I think going back to Alejo's point, if Troy, if you ever feel shorthanded, please rely on us. We've got young people on this board that understand that marketing stuff, and a marketing professional is on our board. So please feel free to utilize us in the best way you can. So I think we're all happy to do it.
Some of us old folks know that too, Eddie.
I know someone.
I know we're getting a little pushy, Eddie, but some of us old folks are also engaged.
I'm not saying that.
I know where that's coming from, Eddie.
You fell into the young people on this board, so I don't know. Okay. Anything else that we need to touch on 2021 goals?
Yeah. I want to thank you for doing that. This is a step forward, I think, in identifying those and some of those areas we've raised concerns about. So I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. All right. Well, move the recreation update under the director's update at the end so we can hop into item number 5, golf update and first tee. And since Mr. Hendricks is not here, I believe Mr. Houtman will be presenting on this.
Yes, I just have a few pieces of information I wanted to share. So we have the year-to-date, year-end rounds for 2020. And with all 4 golf courses, which is pretty exciting, number that we got is 145,231 rounds, which was almost 20,000, 18,000 rounds more than last year. And that was with all the COVID restrictions as well. So that was pretty exciting to see. And then for the month of December, we are roughly 2,800 rounds more than what we did last year for the month of December. So those are really good numbers that I wanted to report and share with you guys.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Troy?
How about, is there an update on the first tee proposal? I've been told that first tee personnel are telling the staff it's a done deal and it's over and done and we're going down the road. Did you clarify that?
They haven't shared that with me. I'm waiting for a proposal from them to share with the city manager and evaluate with our attorneys and our finance folks. So I haven't been yet to get that from them. We had to clarify some of the things in regards to water rights, some of the other financial questions that they had, and get them some more information. And we've been providing that information this week. And hopefully we'll get a proposal that we can share with you guys next month. or if not sooner, if it's needed, we can probably do a special meeting to make sure that we present this to the park board.
And there's been some turnover in the division. Is any of that related to the uncertainty about the future of the division?
I do know that we have one person that is moving on to a different job, and sounds like it was a much better opportunity. But I would gather that just like anybody else, they're looking for certainly in regards to their jobs. And so that possibly or probably has an impact on that as well. I don't know that for a fact. But the person that is moving on seems to share that he is going on to a bigger, better job, and that's good for him.
And regarding the furloughs, there's a little confusion on that. I understand the manager made a statement that the furloughs would not be applied January, February, but yet January furloughs were imposed. Was there an explanation for that?
When I had a discussion with the city manager, we discussed one set of the furloughs or 1 week of the furloughs being relieved. And we shared that with staff last week that the January furloughs were going to go through, but the February furloughs have been halted.
I've got a couple other points, Eddie. The question of membership of the GAC, we've had some members who have missed 3 meetings in a row. Are we enforcing our requirements for participation? Again, there are some points I raised at the last park board meeting, and you encouraged me to put those off to the GAC meeting, and we only had 3 people, didn't have a quorum. So it's difficult to function without engaged membership. What is our do we have a policy? Somebody misses that 3rd meeting, they're relieved?
Yes.
And I'd like to see that followed through by Troy, if you could execute that.
Well, I think it has to go to a vote to you guys to ask to relieve have this person relieved.
What we've done in the past, if I may, after 3 misses, we sent a letter correspondence to the person and asked them to either resign or give us a reason how they're going to return on a regular basis. And after that, we give their representative on the park board a chance to appoint somebody else.
We have a meeting later this month. Perhaps we could pick it up, address that at the next GAC meeting. Troy, there was a disagreement about the ending balance numbers. Some of that was expressed publicly, and it was 470,000 at one end and 300,000 at the other. I don't care what it is, but I'm getting a little tired of seeing too many of the same number for the different numbers for the same result. Can we get to where we have a consensus number? I think you kind of addressed that a little bit in the where you said finance was going to play a role in determining the number. Is that where we are now? We're going to have one number that Troy Hendricks uses and you used and the finance department uses, and it's the one closing balance that we all can accept as valid?
Yeah, that's the idea behind this. What we're going to do is if there's any questions, we need it in writing. I'll provide it to Mr. Manning. They'll provide us the financial equation or the outcome or whatever the answer is, and we'll bring that back to either the Golf Advisory Committee or to the Park Board. What we were doing is in the past, we have 2 different people asking 2 different questions. And so this way we can have it clarified exactly what the question is, and we can use the right parameters in regards to what the answer is. Because Mr. Manning looks at different programs, he looks at different outcomes, as so does the staff. So this way we have everything underneath one umbrella, and we take everything to Mr. Manning. he will provide the answers, and we'll bring that back.
Thank you.
And lastly, I haven't seen a particular diversity strategy from the Golf Division reaching out to minorities and women at a greater extent than we do now. Our growth opportunities lie in those areas, but I've never seen that specifically addressed. You mentioned that diversity is a concern department-wide. Perhaps at the next meeting or at the next GAC meeting, could we have identified what exactly are we doing to reach out to minorities and to women golfers to broaden our base?
I agree. I think that was one of the things that's lacking in golf, and that's something I want to work on, and not only in golf but some other areas in the department. But that is one of the reasons why we're putting this whole diversity program together, so we can reach out to all areas of our community.
Is Rowan on this call?
I don't think so.
Okay. Dale, you might shoot her a note. That's a good point, and I do want to touch on that in the next GAC meeting. So you might shoot her a note to make sure that we get that on the agenda for the next meeting.
Is Rowan still on the staff? Did we have a turnover of the accountant?
Until Friday, and she's not the accountant. She's a payroll.
She's payroll. Is she the one that's leaving, or?
She is leaving on Friday. Friday is her last day.
Well, I'll send the email to you, Troy, and you can figure out where it goes, I guess, or to Hendricks. I'll copy both of you.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was going to say. Awesome.
Okay. Any more questions for golf?
I got about 30 more, Eddie, but I'm going to hold them because I don't want to be too pushy, Step back.
Thanks for that, Dale.
Yeah, you're going to hear that a lot.
To it. We'll get to all of them. Okay. Let's go to park maintenance and forestry update from David McGuire.
So David is out, but we do have our forestry staff that's going to provide some information to us. So Mr. Ferris has a PowerPoint that he's going to share with you guys.
Great.
So my name is Gary Ferris. I'm the city arborist. I work with forestry. David McGuire is my supervisor, and of course, like Mr. Howman said, he is out, so I'm taking his place right now. I'll also be speaking about park maintenance and construction. I do not know those sections as intimately as I do forestry, so I'll do my best to answer your questions all the way around. But the presentation, if you see it on your screen, there's 3 sections: forestry, park maintenance, and construction. So I'll go through that. Forestry first. This is a picture of some of the guys from a few years ago at one of our gatherings. So we have in forestry have an umbrella of main production. We do inspections on trees, we prune trees, we remove trees. Internal lingo that I inherited when I got here was TFR for removal. I've never heard that till I got to Wichita, but the culture doesn't want to be changed, so I've adopted that. It does mean topped for removal. That comes from when we used to cut the trees down to about 15 feet and then dig out the stumps by hand. I don't know if it's just a nod to the past, but anyway, so we call it TFRs for a tree removal. That'll come up as we do reports later on. And then we grind stumps. Stump grinding involves actually grinding out the stump, cleaning up the mess, replacing the topsoil back in the void. These numbers that I did have on that slide, those were numbers from January 1 through December 23rd. And of course, there was a month of furlough in that. So those numbers are off from our typical year. Support activities that we do involve safety, within our own group. We also are involved with safety in park maintenance and construction where small engine powered pieces of equipment such as chainsaws are involved. We do some training in that. And just our own administration under David and Lucity maintenance. When I say Lucity, that is our work order system that requires a significant amount of input and maintenance to keep that up so that we can know where we're at and where we're going with our work orders so that things don't fall through the cracks and things get done on a as timely basis as we can. And then our large log management, that's not really tracked too well within our Lucity system, but we generate a lot of tree debris. Some of it we chip and some of it just remains in logs. So we have to have a way of dealing with that, disposing of that debris. And that is a major component of what we do. Looking into the future of forestry, one of the things that we are doing is implementing this grapple saw truck. It is a relatively new piece of technology in the world of forestry for urban forestry. Logging for milling purposes and things like that have used similar technologies for years. This setup has only yet been developed in the past, I believe, 5 years. And if you look at the end of that boom, that piece of equipment that's kind of dangling off there is a grapple that will open up to a 33-inch opening. There's a chainsaw that is at one end of it. So in the picture on the right, we actually reached up about 60 feet in the air. We've got a hold of a piece of branch. We can cut it all from remote control. There is not a person up in the end of that crane. That is controlled by somebody that is on the ground. And we feel like that when we have as many tree removals as we do, that this piece of technology can improve efficiency and it most certainly can improve safety. So we are currently implementing this, and when I say currently, I mean within the past 5 days, have started implementing this, and I would not say that we're good at it yet, but we are going to get there. There is a big learning curve on smooth operation, and when you've been doing tree work for as long as some of my guys have been doing tree work, they can look at a tree and in a matter of seconds develop a work plan based on what equipment they're used to, whether it's a bucket truck or climbing with a rope and saddle. This thing is totally different. So you set up on a tree differently, you think about a tree differently, and you approach it differently. So there's a learning curve, but we're working through that. Another aspect of our future is planting. One of the numbers that I did not have on the production numbers for 2020 was planting because we did almost none. Our budget was eliminated due to COVID. What you see in these pictures is the beginning of what is called a Missouri gravel bed. Trying to operate within the constraints of our budget, we built this with the intent that this year we will purchase some bare root saplings, grow them out in a gravel bed, and that is not constantly but regularly irrigated on a timer, and grow them out over the summer, and we'll harvest them and plant them in the fall as bare root trees. This is a new venture for us. I hope it works. I have a lot of confidence that we'll be able to get trees in the ground, and I'm confident they'll live. What I'm unsure of is the public response. And I just know that when we've planted small trees in the past, we've had problems with vandalism and theft. So that's really what stands in our way for this to be a successful project. I'm confident in our ability to maintain the trees this summer. I'm confident in our ability to harvest the trees and plant them in a timely fashion. I'm confident in the trees' ability to survive in our environment. After that, when we're not there watching them, that's the real trick. So we'll have to just go on from there. I believe that is the last slide for forestry. Vision for the future. This, what we would like to do for the future in forestry is have a crew that is assigned to each quadrant of the city. So that'd be 4 pruning crews that take a systematic approach to the pruning, which would yield getting to all street trees and all the parks within those different quadrants in a timely fashion. When I mean timely fashion, I mean within a 6 to 10 year cycle. That would be within generous industry standards. Currently, our math works out that if we touch a tree, we probably shouldn't touch that tree again for about 65 years. So that's not really acceptable when it comes to being within industry standards, but this would be an approach that would relieve that. And then with emergency responses that we get at completely random times, 24 hours a day, we would have another crew that's a fifth pruning crew that is a much smaller crew that would be utilizing the grapple saw for tree removals until that emergency comes along, and then they would respond to the emergency so that the systematic crew would not have to take off of what they're doing and be inefficient to go handle that emergency. All of that depends on resource allocating and staffing. Are there any questions about forestry before we move on to park maintenance?
Gary, this is Hoyt. Are you taking those big logs to the city dump, or how are they being handled?
A lot of times that's what we have to do. We just don't have a choice of where to put them. We prefer to take them to people that will use them. There are several different sawmills around town. There are pardon me, I forget the tax code that governs not-for-profit groups. There's a 501c3 program, thank you. So there are some of those programs that have facilities that are heated by wood stoves.
Okay.
We provide them wood. We don't cherry pick perfect logs for sawmills. They take what they get. When we, so we don't take to every sawmill because not every sawmill wants to accept the good with the bad. When we have to, we take the logs to the dump. That is our least favorite thing to do. It's the same with the wood chips that we generate all summer. We provide chips to WSU. We provide chips to churches that ask for it. We provide chips to Botanica. We provide chips to every park that we have through park maintenance. We really would rather those chips go to places that can use them as opposed to put them in the dump. So that it is primary to keep the debris out of the dump, but we have to get rid of it. There is no storage for us.
So if you run across a walnut or an oak, you probably are going to take that to sawmill.
Like I said, we don't cherry pick.
Okay.
So they get the load that they get because that's what's in the back of the truck that day.
Do you have excess wood chips that could be made available for the public just to pick up at some location?
We have done that in the past, a couple of times prior to my getting here almost 10 years ago. And then I suggested that and I was advised against it, but we did it anyway. And everywhere we've done it, it's the same story. A few people like it, they come and they get it, and then we're getting calls that it has become the community dump. And we're there picking up couches and mattresses and garbage and logs, and it's a maintenance nightmare.
So is there a management solution that might make the chips available in a controlled environment where you wouldn't end up being a dump?
With current facilities and staffing, I don't see one, but I am absolutely open to suggestion.
Okay. On the saplings, one of the things I hear at the dog parks is the absence of shade, particularly the one at the Meridian Dog Park. And note they've planted trees in that park outside the dog park. Is it possible for that to get in a request line to have trees planted on the dog park to get more shade? That's a recurring request I hear.
It's absolutely worth the request. I'll have to get with those that maintain the dog park to see if that's feasible for continued maintenance. So I know that we've planted some trees within dog parks in the past, but I haven't personally gone back to check on those trees, so I don't know how they're doing.
If I could share some information, Dale. So that's over an old landfill and actually has a thick rubber cover over it.
There's
And
film on it, yeah.
one of the issues is we can't penetrate that, or we can't disturb that. We could get fined if we ended up doing that. So that's one of the main reasons why there's no trees at that location. This goes back when I'm not sure why this location was selected to be a dog park. I think at the time they thought, hey, you know what, this property is not being used, let's go ahead and put dogs on it. But the standards that we put in place for design now would not let us do that. So all of our new dog parks require shade and require opportunities to put in the right plumbing and utilities as well. But the reason why this dog park, the one that you're talking about, another one, do not have trees is because they're on top of a landfill.
Right, like Chapin.
Exactly.
I have a budget question. Is that appropriate to bring up now? Is it my understanding that forestry is funded through the franchise fee collected by the city from Westar? Is that correct?
It is subsidizes the budget. Yes, you are correct.
That's a designated allocation every year?
That's correct.
And how much is that on an annual basis?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, Dale. I'm sorry, but we can provide that for you if that's something you want.
As part of the budget discussion going forward, I'd like to see that broken down, identified in its totality, and then how that is allocated into the forestry department. It seems like a lot of money. And we have a great forestry department. I'm a big fan of what they do. They trim trees on my easement, and they are absolutely amazing in how efficient they were. They do a great job. So if that funding, if the fellow said they've run out of money, I'd like to see that, how that money was accounted for, and make sure that that's perhaps something the park board might be more involved in monitoring that specific fund. Is the forestry department, that's their exclusive source of revenue?
No, it's a part of it, not all of it. Some of it comes from the general fund as well.
Okay, so a budget breakdown that would be useful perhaps at the next forestry. And I'm glad you added forestry to the ongoing agenda because it is a hugely important part of what you do.
Are there any more questions about forestry that I could answer? Hearing none, I did actually put together a small list of things that we do, because I put this PowerPoint together, and I put in the main things that we do: the pruning, the removal, the inspections, the stump grinding, planting. Those things are the big ticket items that we do. Some of the other things that we do throughout a year is we put on the Arbor Day celebration. We source, we put up, decorate, take down the Christmas trees and Christmas tree lights at the Tennis Center, Century 2, Old Town, NASCAR Park, and we assist with the installation of some of the decorations that park maintenance is responsible for. We place and take away the ticket booths at Botanica for illuminations. We're on call 24/7 for emergency responses to the fire department, police department, water and sewer, and MABCD. We respond as quickly as we possibly can to requests by council members. And we have responsibility to clean up creeks with tires, trees, and trash. We do some special event setup assistance. We work with MABCD to inspect private nuisance trees and give our reports on that. We also, this year, started with our forestry safety and skills coordinator doing building inspections for Park and Rec as a part of our CAPRA requirements. And that's a small list of other things that we do.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that?
Sounds like you're busy.
Yes, sir. All right. Moving on to construction, and Brett Russell is the leader of this group. Brett's a great asset to our team, and he keeps construction very, very well organized and moving forward. This is probably an incomplete list of all the things that they actually did get done. They do an amazing amount of work for the number of people that they have. Carl Brewer Memorial Bench, Grandparents Park, that was completed. Safety inspections for playgrounds, 131 of those in December. 11 sections of decorative iron fence along Bailey Corridor, that was completed. The annual athletic court condition assessment, that was done. The annual fence and gate maintenance on all the dog parks. They retrofitted gates at the dog parks to prevent the dogs from exiting. I think they had a problem with some of the smaller breeds slipping through the fence. So they removed a lot of bollards in Columbine Park, and they installed 5 dogs on leash signs in Central Riverside Park, picked up the salvage pool equipment from phase 2 and of the pool program and put that in storage, and replaced missing or damaged social distancing signs on all the playgrounds and open shelters. That's just a snapshot of what they got done in December. Looking with snow removal, they also were in charge of doing some snow removal with the museums and the community centers. They inspected and cleaned and serviced basketball goals in all the rec centers, and removed and replaced part of the sidewalk at Auburn Hills and Sim for trip hazard elimination. And then, of course, construction would not be complete without all the graffiti removal that they do. With January coming up, or well, we're now in it. This is a list of some of the things that they're going to be doing here. I'm positive that this is not a complete list of all the things that they'll get done. They are working at South Lakes to put up football goalposts. There's the McDonough Family Memorial Bench that they're going to put in. They've got rolling gates to maintain throughout the park system. When forestry puts in the Christmas tree, we do so in collaboration with construction. They have plates that they put down, big steel plates that they install so that we can put the tree up so that the tree doesn't fall over or lean over. So we work in coordination with Brett every year on that. And then they've got park signs to rebuild and repair. There's a climbing net that has to be replaced at Pawnee Prairie Park, and they monitor and support construction in the Sherwin Glen playground and continue playground safety inspections. Those are an ongoing issue. And graffiti and vandalism does not have a schedule, so they just respond to that as needed. If there's any specific questions about the construction group, I would do my best to answer them, but Mr. Hauptman may be better at it than I.
Any questions for the construction group here? Okay, see none.
We move on to park maintenance. In December, they were working on holiday lights along with forestry. They had some regrading and shale to add to the baseball and softball fields. They mowed fire guards in the wildland areas. Did an amazing amount of work on the capper recertification. A lot of time was spent on that, and a lot of good results there. Did a lot of treating the concrete medials so that next year they're not weedy. A lot of pre-emergent applications there. There's a significant problem with homeless encampments and illegal dumping of tires. That takes up an amazing amount of time and effort.
Can I ask a question about that while you're on that point? I've noticed
Sure.
that in our park, and it's become a problem this summer or this winter, people living underneath the fir trees with refuse, human refuse. My neighbor found a rifle under it and turned it over to the cops. Is that a growing problem of more homeless living in our parks?
As I understand it, and Mr. Howman, you may be able to answer this better than I do, but just speaking with Warren McCoskey, who is the supervisor in park maintenance, the problem of cleaning up homeless encampments is becoming such an issue that the time that it takes is so encompassing of what they have to do and how soon they have to get it done that it's really impeding other work that they should be doing. It is a real problem.
To add to that, yes, Dale, it's been a growing problem. I think there's more homeless that are coming in regards to the dealing with COVID. The interesting thing is we're not just seeing them living outside, but living in cars in our parking lots and using our facilities. It's been really a difficult situation, and we're working hand in hand with the police department to help address it. There's a lot of different steps that we have to take, but the folks from the police department are a huge asset for us to address this.
No. Perhaps we could have an update on that particular thing going forward. It does seem to be a concern, and it's I know it's troubling to our neighbors in this area. They'd be encouraged to know what we're doing to deal with it. So that could be, again, more highlighted in the next time. That'd be great.
What I could do is I could ask the police department, they have a specific team that addresses homelessness, and maybe they can do a presentation for us.
So moving on to the other things that park maintenance accomplished during December is a lot of shrub pruning along the river corridor. There were a lot of branches from trees and shrubs encroaching on bike paths and other walking paths, and they've been attacking that with vigor. Fence maintenance and repair on athletic fields, irrigation valve boxes, repair and replacement as they close down the irrigation systems, and the trapping of gophers and moles. I didn't even know that we did that, but so I learned something getting prepared for this. But apparently we do quite a bit of that, so that's good to know. And then, of course, ice and snow removal.
On the moles thing, that is a huge problem. That Meridian Park where I live has become like prairie dog town. And all the neighbors are suffering as a result. Is there something that the neighborhood could get engaged with when it's adjacent to a park that if you drive them out of one place, they're going to go to another? I didn't know. There are so few options for dealing with moles, but they are really becoming a huge problem.
I am not the mole expert. So I will have to defer that question.
Okay, you wouldn't want to be either, probably, but that's all right.
I can promise you, based on what I'm reading, I don't.
Okay,
Dale, there's not that many people that have those expertise, but I'm making a note here. Maybe we could get you some more information later on.
Okay.
So moving on to scheduled activity for park maintenance in January, continued application of pre-emergent in the medials, but then also they've had a great success doing pre-emergent herbicide to prevent sandburr, and that has become a huge issue in some of the parks, and they've really been able to knock it down in some areas, had a lot of success, so they're continuing with that activity. The removal of invasive brush, specifically bush honeysuckle. They do a lot of shrub and tree pruning in January in various parts of the parks. And then also the contract renewal is going to take quite a bit of time, especially for Warren and some of the inspectors to get all that set up for the contracted grounds maintenance. And of course, ice and snow removal as needed, always responding to homeless encampments, and then training as required. And that is the end of the slideshow.
If I could interject a couple of things, a couple big projects that they're going to be working on, and a lot of people don't realize that we actually do some controlled burns. And the park staff, they've been training on this. They actually have controlled burn equipment, and we go through a whole process of finding the right dates and times to do this, and then we actually go through a permitting process. So I'm pretty excited that we have this in place, and not too many municipal parks and recreation departments do control burns. Another big thing that Mr. Ferris had touched on is in regards to contract mowing. I think it's somewhere in the neighborhood about 80% of our parks are mowed by a contractor. And so we have a very intricate process of getting the work orders to them, inspecting, and then actually doing payment on this. Every year we do negotiations on the contract to make sure that we have competitive prices. And I can't recall the exact number, but we're somewhere in the neighborhood of about $3 to $4 million worth of contracting for doing park maintenance. So that's a really big component of the things that David does.
Troy, this is a question from Hoyt.
Mhm.
I know that I appreciate the sandbird treatments, but when we're looking at poison ivy and stuff like that, is there a department for noxious weeds that comes out and sprays and kills those kinds of things before you have the burns, controlled burns?
So there is no department for noxious weeds. We do have one person that, when we have the opportunity, they do this work. They have actual training in regards to spraying for poison ivy and another items as well. But we try to look at some other ways to get rid of poison ivy as well. But yeah, that's something that always comes up every spring. We get a call on that, whether it's by contact or people just breathing some of the poison ivy. It is an issue in this area. It's just something that we have to deal with on a case-by-case basis and manage it with the resources that we have.
Who's the contact person for that? Because we run into a lot of it up and down the river, and at least within the city. It'd be nice to know the contact person for that.
David McGuire.
Okay, thank you.
I think you know that guy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, any more questions for park maintenance, forestry, anything? See none. Thank you, Mr. Ferris. And we will move forward to the finance update presented by Emma.
All right, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, very good. I'm going to share my screen real quick for the presentation. Okay, can everyone see the presentation okay?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're going to start with, there we go. It's a little slow over here. I'm going to go over the high level numbers, and then if you have questions, we can address it maybe in the next meetings, or you can send me a list of questions you have. So we're going to start from overview for revenue. And what I did was, since this year is kind of oddball, I was pulling information from 19 just so we have a comparison on how a regular year looks like for us compared to this year. And I also made some side notes on where the differences comes from. So as you can imagine, for revenue side, due to cancellation for programs and activities, it has decreased by roughly about $1 million based on the number that's provided. And then we are anticipating a slow increase in 2021, but it really just depends on the regulation for COVID is, how much of gathering we can have, and then what is safe for the public, whatnot, and then the rules and regulation that we have to comply and follow as well. So this is our revenue, and then we're going to move on to expense. So on the expense side of it, I did the same thing, compare 19 to 20. And side note for 2020, we don't have the period 12. By period 12, I mean month December. It's not closed yet because, it's a new software, and then this year end, there's so many loose ends to tie, and then it's just taking a little bit longer to close from controller's office, which is understandable. By and large, there shouldn't be a huge change, but I can provide an update after the monthly is closed. And also, there's this one jargon we call in the city, we call period 13. It's really just year-end closing, end of year closing. So for 19, because the year is closed, I was able to pull data from year-end closing, which we call period 13, and I compare it to 12. Again, just keep in mind 12 is not complete, but it should be pretty close. And based on the information is provided. So the actual expenses decreased year over year by about $1 million, 1.2, and then it's mainly due to personnel expense decreases. And like Gary mentioned, because of the budget freezing, we're not hiring a lot of the seasonal or part-time employees to help us. That's including maintenance and forestry, along with recreation. And because of it, the expense, we're able to save quite a bit on that part. And then the original budget was increased by about 1 million. And this is very common practice because the city understands the cost of living is higher and the cost of doing anything is higher. So they usually, in general, give us a little bit extra just to cover that. And this year, mid-year, we revised budget because the COVID impacts. So this year is a little oddball, as you can see. And how the revised budget works is during mid-year, the budget office worked with us to see, hey, where things are at. Previously, before the year happens, we're anticipating this is happening, but this is mid-year. Let's see what has happened and what is going to happen for the rest of the year. So let's revise it, make it more practical and make it more feasible for the rest of the year. So we don't have this just set number we have to follow through the rest of the year. Either let it be more or less. For the most part, it's less because we're very careful with budget. We understand the city has a number to abide to, so we can stay afloat. So we're trying to be respectful and understandable of the number. That's why usually you will see a slight decrease in the revised budget for that reason. But overall, both years were within budgets. Do you guys want to ask questions at this point, or just ask questions after I'm done?
Does anybody have any questions for Emma right now? See none, Emma, carry on, and maybe we'll have some at the end.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so next one, I just dive into a little bit details on where those money was spent. So we call it roll-up groups. Essentially, it's just categories, how we track our expenses or budget. And for over here, I brought in the actuals because it has happened. We care about how much rate do we spend. And it's broken down to 5 different categories. And as you can tell, we have been saving money quite a bit for all categories besides contractual, and I'll explain to you why the contractual has increased this year. But personnel is a huge savings, like I said, because COVID has happened. Part of it, we don't need the seasonal or part-time employees because our programs are canceled. It makes sense that cut down a little bit. And the other one's commodity is the same thing because program has increased. We don't have to buy the supplies for those activities. And the big thing I want to address is contractual. So contractual happens because there was back charge in the amount of $350,000 from 19. And if you were to add that 350 in 19 and then deduct from 2020, we would have been within budget, and then you would have seen a shrinkage, as a matter of fact, in this year's contractual versus over. So that's what happened. As far as the reason behind it, I think Public Works had some system problem last year because we're going through some system changes, and that's why they weren't able to attach those or calculate or attach the water charges from last year. And last year, once the book is closed, they had to charge this year, and didn't happen until July. So it took them quite a while to figure things out. Sounds like that's why it was charged this year. So we're gonna move on to next one. So I also put together division numbers for you guys because I'll be curious as far as what do you guys have by department, by divisions. And as far as division goes, as you can see, the expense for recreation has decreased, and because again, programs, activities, cancellations, and admin expense has increased because admin has, as you can see, smaller budget compared to park maintenance, and then recreation, that's 4 million, and then park maintenance is 12 million. But there is pay increase every year because of cost of living adjustment and merit pay, and that's part of city policy, and that's part of the increase in the admin charges. So 70,000 comes from that, and 30,000 comes from new software and support we got from IT because the new software we launched as well. So those are the numbers for that. And next one I want to talk about is, sorry, it's kind of slow. There we go. So next one, we'll talk about budget, because folks keep asking about, hey, how does budget work? We want to understand, and we want to see how we can participate to help out. And there are 4 big steps. We'll start from step 1, is collecting and reviewing data. And I'm going to dive into a little more details on those schedules on how do we collect this data and how to review it. But by and large, this is more of an internal function, allow us to have time to really just review and put information together to learn and to project. And step 2, I think that might be the step you guys will be interested in participating or have been as well. So we will, during the budget development process, they review, the city manager and budget office, they review everything that we turn in, the assumptions. We'll say, hey, this year recreation is going to have a great year. We're going to have so many activities, and this is why we need more money, whatnot. And then they will work on revised projections if it need to be, and just figure out more efficient way to provide services. And then the other bullet point is meeting with the district advisory board to inform the public about budget projections and get feedbacks. I do have sorry, I'm trying to share a little more date with you guys. That way you can plan on what days you can put on a calendar participating in this kind of activities. So June 1st, June and June 8th are the district advisory board meetings. So if you guys are interested, those are the days you can mark your calendars for. And next one is there are public hearings during the city council meetings. I don't know if there are dates set up for this yet, now that I can find. But as it gets closer, we can remind folks and send out information, reminder, whatnot. And one cool thing we do is social meeting, social meeting for town hall. That is June 23rd, 2 to 3:30 p.m. And that will be a good way for you guys to participate. And the other tool is really cool. That I didn't put in presentation is it's called Budget Simulator. So it's a survey-ish looking program. You can log in, and then it will ask you what's important to you, and the public can participate and then tell us, hey, where we should spend money, whatnot. And that's how we can gather feedbacks from the public, which I think you guys can participate, and it will be really helpful to us as well. So next slide, we're going to move to step 3 and step 4. Step 3, budget adoption. And this part is more of going through logistics of getting approved. So a couple dates, July 14th, the city manager is going to present to city council. And then August 4th, there will be a budget hearing at city council meetings. And then August 11th, it will be scheduled for adoption. So this part is, like I said, I don't think anyone can really participate per se to give feedback because it's too late. It's already adopting. And then step 4 is implementation. We will carry out the rest of the year and start over again next year. And I'm going to give you a little more information on what we call Q1 calendar. This is more for internal usage. Mr. Hoffman wants me to share with you guys just for transparency purposes. This is something I'm really involved in, is to gather information, and that's how we accomplish that communication between department and city manager and the finance department to see, hey, what do you guys think you guys need, how things are, and they will take that information, and then late March to April timeframe, all different departments will schedule budget hearing with the city manager's office and city manager himself. And we can talk through all those struggles or accomplishment or questions or whatnot. I think that's all I have. Yep. Do you guys have questions?
Any questions for Emma?
That was a lot of information, huh?
I don't see any questions. Thank you very much, Emma.
So I just wanted to add, I did talk to the budget office and they're willing to do a presentation. Something maybe we could add on next month's agenda to put it on that.
Yeah, I would say Elizabeth Gautry. She's definitely way more knowledgeable than I am in budget process because they're the one in charge of all that. We do provide feedbacks and work with them. If you guys have more detailed questions, Elizabeth will be a good person to ask for sure.
All right. If there are no
Thank you,
further
Ron.
questions, we can move on to the Parks Foundation update.
Troy, is that me?
I think that's you, unless you want.
No, yeah, I'll let me know if I miss anything. Right now, the Parks Foundation is they've been really focusing on what they can do with the money from Plates for Parks. And that seems to be the focus right now. And so there was a proposal brought to them to put these custom benches that would highlight key figures in Wichita's history. So like, you know, one of the examples was brought up as like an athletic bench. And so maybe you feature like Barry Sanders and Gail Sayers, who, you know, folks often forget are from Wichita. And the thought is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Troy, I believe that we're going to pick 10 parks within our park system to place these initial 10 benches on. So and the artists, oh, go ahead.
So it's actually changed a little bit. We wanted to make sure that there was equal representation at all the districts. And so they're going to do similar to what we did with the keepers, that there's going to be 2 benches in each district.
Oh, wonderful. And then, I mean, just outside of that, it's just really been a focus on, you know, if for some reason you've got an idea or a proposal that you want to bring to the Parks Foundation, right? What does that share of responsibility look like? And so, again, they're just trying to work through those processes. But obviously, from our end, you know, I think this is an opportunity for us as a park board. You know, if there's specific projects that we want to see brought to life, you know, I think it's important that we look at the Parks Foundation as viable partners for us. And so I think moving forward, you know, as we look at different projects and different initiatives, we should consider the possibility of working with them. And obviously, they welcomed me onto the board to sit into their meetings because they do want to work with us. So I don't know that I've missed anything else. Troy, is there something else that I need to add?
No, I think you covered it. I think the biggest part is there's a big effort to want to spend some of the money that we've collected from the Plates for Parks, and it's over $200,000. And I think we're into the E series of the plates, A, B, C, D, E. So it's been a very successful program. And what we want to do is spend some money so we can promote it, and using some marketing and promotional items to say, this is what we've done with the money, and this is what we could do with even more. So go out and buy some more plates. So that's been the major push.
Ty, did you have a question?
I did have a question, but Troy answered it. I just wondered how much money we were talking about here. So now I know. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for Alejo or Troy? Parks Foundation. See none. Move on to President's update. I don't have an update, so we can move forward to the Director's update. I know we got Paul here to give us a little recap of the Delano Trail, but Troy, did you have anything that you wanted to add prior to that?
Yeah, there's just a couple things. The Great Plains Nature Center, as you all know, we're a partner with them, and their director has retired. So we're going to be looking to make a change in leadership, and there's a quite strong possibility that Amanda Alisi, who is one of our employees, might become the director there. We go through a process of working with the folks from the state and from the federal government, as well as the friends of, and we have a committee that we work together with, and we share responsibilities in regards to administrative items and marketing and maintenance and whatnot, and also in regards to hiring. And so we're going to be going through this process, working with that group. So, but I'm almost sure that we'll be Amanda might become the director there. Just to make sure, I just wanted to make sure that for next meeting that I mentioned that we'll have the CLOP presentation. You guys want to look at the forestry budget specifically in regards to the franchise fees, and so either Emma or somebody from finance will present. I'm going to get with the hot team from the police department to do a presentation on homelessness. I'll try to get some information about moles. And if things are in line for giving a presentation on First Tee, that will be on the schedule for next month. So I just want to make sure I got all that. If I missed anything, let me know. Next, to satisfy Alejo's request in regards to the Delano area and the trail that's going through there, I have Paul Gunzelman from the engineering department. He's been working on this project, and he's going to give you guys a quick presentation. And then I think there's a phase 2 part of this that he might be giving a follow-up of this next month or the following month.
Yes. Thank you, Troy. Penny, I believe I had a short PowerPoint.
Yeah, give me just a minute to get that pulled up, Paul.
Okay.
Thank you, Troy, for that, by the way.
And while she's pulling that up, as Troy mentioned, I do want to come back to you at a future meeting to discuss a little bit more of the project. Currently, we are working on phase 1, so that's what I'm going to call it, and that is beginning at the eastern limits of McLean Boulevard. And if you've been by the site here in recent weeks, Crossland's doing the work for that. They've got the hotel built. TGC is the hotel built, and this is just south of the hotel. They have constructed the 10-foot path in that area right now and are doing some grading work as I was there this morning. Following that, so that'll be between McLean and Sycamore Street. EPC on the west side of Sycamore, just south of the Advanced Learning Center, is still under construction, and they will be opening up March 1st. So that area between their building and Hutton is still being utilized as a staging area, construction area. So they'll follow up with that portion of the path after they're finished with that.
I apologize, Paul. This is taking just a second.
Okay. And what I want to come back to you all on are, I'm going to meet with Trans Systems and LK Architecture here before long, hopefully yet this week. There we go.
All of a sudden, I'm having some technical challenges. Hang on just a minute.
Okay.
Is that showing? Is that showing on the screen now?
I see the, I see your, it's just the file's not opening.
Huh, okay. Let me try again.
I have to drop it on the desktop too.
This is not usually this difficult. I apologize.
That's okay. That's the world we live in today with Zoom and Teams and all this other good stuff that technology brings us.
That's true. I do have a question for Paul. Unless this opens up.
Yeah, go ahead, Hoyt. And I do see the PowerPoint presentation now, so.
Okay.
Okay. Down the line, I'd like to know if we're going to be incorporating any in the process.
Any what?
Historical plaques.
We have had a discussion with Jeff on that, and yes, I believe there are some. So that we will continue that dialogue with him. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, if everybody can see this slide, I know it's pretty busy. Up on the slide in the upper left, you can see the project was kind of split up into different phases and/or different types of uses along the corridor. So what I really wanted to talk about today is this first section in orange, and a little bit into the magenta area is what's currently under or will be under construction. So the area that you can see McLean Boulevard kind of going diagonally at the bottom of the green space there. The TGC Hotel has been, like I say, it's been constructed. I believe they are opening tomorrow, in fact. And then they have built that path there along the south side of the hotel. And as I said, they're backfilling it this morning while I was on site. So they'll follow that up with, the landscaping and tree planting, etc. We also have Sycamore Street under construction at this time. Kansas Paving is doing that work. They have most of the parking areas poured, paved, and they'll sidewalk areas are graded out, and then they'll start the mainline paving. At the left side of this concept drawing, you can see the crossing where it crosses Sycamore Street. That will be a raised crossing, similar to what we have in Old Town. They're on 2nd Street. We've done a little bit of raised crossing there on McLean in front of the stadium as well. So that pavement will be built up to provide, a traffic calming to slow vehicles down as they go over that, where the pedestrians and or cyclists will cross. Some conceptual photographs or drawings that LK had come up with. Some of the plant materials. The upper right is the crossing there of Sycamore Street, and then you can see it also down there in the lower left picture as well. EPC would be just off the bottom of the concept, or TGC, and then the EPC apartments shown on the other side of the street that are under construction to be completed in March. And then this is a segment that Crossland will be constructing as well this spring after they complete the EPC apartment development. Hutton offices have been completed and they are open as well. Once Kansas Paving has Sycamore Street completed, then they will do the Oak Street paving of the cul-de-sac as well with their current project. So what Crossland will have completed, we'll be working on this spring, will be from McLean to Sycamore, which is under construction, and then once the apartments are done, they'll pick up from Sycamore over to approximately Osage Street. And then what I want to come back with you all on at a future meeting date would be, and I'll go back to this second slide, is the area in the magenta and crossing Seneca Street over to Exposition. LK Architecture and Trans Systems had come up with a few different options, if those of you who might have been on the park board at the time presented. One was just a linear path, 10-foot path through there. One was more of a I want to refer to it as an Old Town Street where the cyclists and the traffic would, intermix. And then the one that we have went to the district advisory boards, Delano United. We have presented those three options. The third option is a kind of an Old Town Street with two-way traffic with parking on one side, and then an off path for bicycles on one side of the street, and then probably a pedestrian walkway on the other side. So we are refining those, and then that is what I would like to come back to you at a future meeting to present those. So that is my update at this time. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Paul. Are there any questions? Ty.
Yeah, Paul, I just have one question. So the kind of that aesthetic element that I think Kent Williams was designing, you showed.
Yes.
Is that still an integral part of the project? Because I loved it when it was shared previously.
It is, and Ty, you can see that in the bottom right corner there. It's kind of a horn. Yes, that is. We have a couple locations of those, and then we'll probably carry them throughout the corridor. This path, once it gets past Exposition, it'll probably go on street and connect to the Prairie Travelers trail out there near Kellogg and Hoover. So we are talking about having some of these sporadically through that whole corridor.
And how big is that thing? It looks like it's like 30 feet or something? Or?
I think so. I think that's about where we had it. Kent had a model of that, and we actually went over to the library and kind of tried to measure it out, because it was, and I think they cut it back just a little bit, standing by the library and then trying to measure up the wall, how tall it would be. I think they cut it back, 5 feet or so. But yes, it will be a substantial aesthetic piece there at that corner.
Very cool. Thank you.
And we talked about trying to get them, maybe do some smaller ones for like bollards of some type, but we're still kind of chasing that a little bit to integrate those a little bit more.
Any more questions?
No, I think you've done a marvelous job.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Okay, thank you.
We will move on to, I think I saw Reggie in there. Reggie still with us?
Yes, I'm still here.
Let's move on to the recreation update, if you're ready.
Yes, sir. So to give you guys kind of a brief overview of some of the things that we finished up the end of last year with, and some of the things that we're planning for heading into 2021.
No, that's right here. Okay.
So we're already starting to plan for our 2021 season. Last year we made quite a few changes to some of the safety protocols and procedures for events that we were doing for 2020. And leading into this year, we're already planning for some of those events. So those are some of the tournament dates that we've already gotten confirmed for 2021. And then we'll be looking at expanding to add some additional one based on availability and interest from the community. We're also finishing up final plans on a new event that we're looking at doing at Clap Park called Clap for Margaritas, a 3-mile run that we'll be doing in April. And I'll have a little bit more information about that as well. So it'll be a 3-mile course that we're doing there on site where individuals can sign up and do a walk, run portion of it, and to have some follow-up events that we'll do on site with that event as well. So Evergreen Rec Center kind of follows some of the same things that we did for 2020 with expanding some of the rentals that we have there on site. A lot of the programs were canceled due to restrictions for COVID protocol, but we did have rentals every night for either basketball or soccer or volleyball for the entire month of December to capitalize on some of the colder weather and people looking for alternative locations indoors. We're also planning for a flooring project that we're doing as part of the CIP that we're going to be replacing all of the flooring in the rec center, as well as looking at doing some improvements to the game room area there, getting prepared for some of the other programs that we'll offer throughout the year. The tennis center continues to be real busy on the capital improvement project that we're doing there. The new courts for 10 through 13 are now finished and playable. All of the lights and everything have been installed for it and are in place. We're also doing some new controls for the clubhouse area to be able to actually function those, have function for those items as well as we did new pickleball courts that are happening on the west side of the center that actually got poured on last Friday. So we've gotten all of the surface for the courts all down for the foundation portion. And then as the weather gets warmer, we'll be getting ready to do the actual overlay court and striping for it once it gets up above the 50-degree weather consistently, that it can actually handle that portion of the project. So we did quite a few different programs that we have there on site at the tennis center as well. Expanded some of our pickleball drop-in that we're actually doing for open play. Taking advantage of some of that indoor space at the as well in the bubble, with being able to offer some additional programming there. And one of the things we try to do as well is we put out surveys at the end of each of our quarters to gauge kind of the interest from and feedback from our participants, so that we know what changes we need to make for programming that are coming up. And wanted to share one of those one of the feedback that we got from a participant that we had there about the tennis center, and kind of giving the staff there kudos on some of the new programs and things that we implemented there. So we're getting some good feedback from the community that's right in line with some of the things that we're looking to do to expand for 2021. And we're also looking at ways that we can expand to offer some additional tournament play and games with working with the school districts here in the area, looking at hosting some statewide tournaments in reference with the Tennis Association, as well as Friends in Newman is looking at our sites for hosting all of their games with the new expansion. So that's going to bring in quite a bit of more revenue into the center as well. So we're excited about that. And one of the things I wanted to highlight for this quarter as well, one of the things that we try to do is always look at community partnerships, how we can grow programs and get more visibility in the community with having not to expend as much revenue to offer those programs. So one of the programs that I mentioned to you guys before is the one on the top left, which is Youth Tech Inc., which is the computer programming classes that we partner with this particular organizations that we started last summer, and has some really good participation with that. We're expanding those programs, looking to do even more this year. The top right, we're actually working with the Boy Scouts here in the area, looking at starting a Scouting in the Park program where we can actually have scout programs at each of our rec centers. We're starting out targeting with McAdams, where they're actually coming in, covering the cost for our registration and participation for the young people there. We're the whole site for it. And it does a couple of things for us. It gets people into our facilities that we can kind of cross-market to participate in some of the other programs we offer there on site, and also being able to look at doing some day camp programs and things on the facilities as well to get some more exposure. And lastly, at the bottom, one of the hot topics that's taking place right now is esports, and doing a lot of that programming with young people and college-age students. So we are partnering with an organization that we've been working with Beth on, trying to get the agreement finalized where we're going to do some online gaming where people can actually register wherever they are in the community and compete against other people on online gaming. And the good thing about that is that the partner organization that we're working with is incurring all of the costs for getting it set up, getting all of the equipment that's required for it, and we're just helping promoting it and able to get a portion of that revenue from that program. And then as we expand and are able to do it on site, we'll be able to host some of those tournaments on at our facilities and gain additional revenue as well. And these are all programs that we're bringing in additional revenue for that was not costing us anything in our budget to actually offer them. And kind of lastly is our flyer, give a little bit more information about the Claps for Margarita event that I mentioned earlier. So we have it scheduled right now for April 17th at Clap Park. And that's going to be contingent upon some of our restrictions that we have with COVID. But it's something that we're really looking forward to and think it has a lot of potential. And we've got some interest from the community about sponsors and things that we're going to be looking at. Hopefully having a sponsor that will cover all of our costs for the event so that whatever we bring in from registration and additional items that we have available on site is strictly revenue that goes back into athletics and special events that we can offer to the community. So I'll open it up. If you guys have any questions for me, I'll be more than happy to answer them for you as well.
Any questions for Reggie? See none. Thank you, Reggie.
All right, thank you guys.
Okay. Is there anything that needs to be brought up that we have not talked about already today? Anything for next meeting that needs to be on the agenda that has not already been brought up? See none. If that's it, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, everybody on the board. Appreciate it. Thank you.
See ya.